All right, good day, everybody. It is definitely a Monday. It is Monday, March 28th, 2022. How's everybody doing today? It's a lot to talk about in the news, some pretty interesting stuff. Trump had his speech on Saturday. I know a lot of people talking about that. A lot going on in the world. Biden, top of the headlines this morning, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So here's something that I found interesting. We've been talking about it for weeks now here on LWN, but it's really starting to have that ripple effect that we discussed. So, Ukraine war causes food shortages in fragile Middle East. So, there is a mother of four, family of four, that says that she is already exhausted by Lebanon's disaster 2 year economic collapse. Now, as Russia invades the Ukraine, it sends food and energy prices soaring even further, and she finds herself struggling to put food on the table for the family of four. Even bread is now something uh, something that we don't take for granted. Now, how bad is that, folks? When bread is even hard to get. So this lady, she is a 48-year-old housewife, and standing recently in a supermarket aisle in front of gallons of cooking oil whose prices have also risen to an all-time high. So not only is it hard to get bread, but some of the necessities that they need, like cooking oil to cook with, those prices are soaring so high that she can't even afford that. So Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, and Yemen, millions of people in the Middle East whose lives were already upended by conflict, displaced, and poverty are now wondering where their next meal will come from. Ukraine and Russia account for a third of the global wheat and barley export, which countries in the Middle East rely on to feed millions of people who subsist and subsidize bread and noodles. So they make noodles out of that stuff, and these people rely on that. They are also the top exporters of other grains and sunflower seed oil that is used for cooking. So I just thought I would bring this to your attention. Here's something that comes out of Breitbart London. Now listen to this. I find this interesting because no matter what side of the fence you're on, it's always a constant tug of war back and forth of what's really going on. So listen to this headline here. A leading MP believes the exchange in supporting Russia's attempts to gain control of Ukraine, Russia will ship Ukraine wheat to China. So the wheat that they would normally ship to Ukraine, they're now going to ship to China, which has been facing food shortages. So China is now in food shortage problems. And so now Russia is going to start shipping wheat to China and not to Ukraine. They say Ukraine has a tragic history of Russia pillaging its food resources. So they're claiming that Russia is in there and they're going to start taking the wheat from Ukraine and ship it to Russia. They also say that China and Russia are plotting a new world order. So there you go. There's that headline. Let's talk about the next one, which is Hunter's laptop. So Hunter Biden's laptop whistleblower John Paul Mac Isaac said in a Breitbart News interview, I think it was Sunday, he says that he had legal ownership of the laptop, followed all the rules, did everything right, and still they destroyed him in order to protect a wealthy and powerful Democrat name like Joey Dimes, the good man who resided in D.C. Said that he had owned a house, he owned a business, he was doing very well for himself until one night a drunk and disorderly gentleman came into his shop and had three broken laptops. Before the drunk man entered his life with the three broken laptops, John Paul Mac Isaac owned a home, a small business, and had carved out a life for himself in Wilmington, Delaware. John Paul Mac Isaac wasn't looking for trouble or to become famous or do anything other than quietly live his life when in walked a drunk, entitled, and corrupt Hunter Biden. So it goes on further to say, and I'll drop this. I'm starting to kind of figure some of this stuff out. So I'll drop this link in chat real quick if I can grab it here, because I think it's pretty interesting. It's been around for a while. It won't let me do it. Why is it not allowed? There we go. Okay. Let me take this up here. I'll drop the link, and I wanna show you guys something else too. The speech from Biden this weekend. So there's a link if you want to check that out about the laptop. It goes on to say that they formed a smear campaign against the guy. They really tore him up really bad. And the biggest part of this whole article is the fact that this all came out prior to November of 2020. And the lamestream media, the Lion media, swept all this under the carpet. They lied about it. They said it was disinformation, misinformation. Um, and it's all coming back to surface again. Okay, let's head on to the next headline here. Let's talk about Biden and Poland. Now, there's 3 articles here that all tie together. So in Poland, Joe Biden demands that Vladimir Putin be removed from power. Now, listen to what he says here. And on top of it, he also steps us back. So President Joe Biden demanded that Russian President Vladimir Putin be removed from power in a dramatic speech in Warsaw, Poland on Saturday. He says, quote, and it is in the video, he says, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power." Now, I watched the speech, a little bit of it. I fast forward to the very end, and he does say that. He calls this guy out big time, and there are people on the world stage that are worried about what this buffoon says, because it affects everybody. It doesn't just affect the United States, it affects NATO and the NATO countries and everybody surrounding Russia. So Biden cried out in the conclusion of his speech, "God bless you, and may God defend our freedom." In that speech, he goes on to say, prior in that speech, he just starts really calling this guy out. And this is what I find interesting in the speech. He calls this guy a dictator. He calls this guy a dictator, and he says that no dictator should ever should ever, be allowed to occupy a country. But yet this guy, remember, has gone on record pushing mandates and pushing restrictions on the American people. How is he not considered a dictator as well? So anyway, there's a parallel there to that. I dropped the link. World leaders rebuke Joe Biden after sloppy Ukraine speech in Poland. So France and Germany both stepped up to the plate Monday, which is today for us, yesterday for them. The NATO allies, France and Germany, tapped down President Joe Biden Saturday, and they were worried about the regime change that he was calling for in Russia. And so the White House immediately retracted the statement, but nevertheless, world leaders felt the need to respond to Joe Biden's statement by suggesting that his words could make it harder to resolve the conflict. So it seems like old Joey here is over there causing more problems, more division, inciting that Putin should be removed from office. It's really, in my opinion, not looking good over in that area right there, because it's just not cooling off. It's not slowing down, and this guy seems to just continue to stoke the fires. So after he says all that over the weekend, he goes back to say, and he walks it back. And Joe Biden now says he was not calling for a regime change in Russia. So he says that Putin should be removed. And then he turns around and says, "I never said that." Joey, you're on record saying it, man. It's right there in the video. You said it. President Joe Biden on Sunday was called out by a reporter, and the reporter says, "Mr. President, do you want Putin removed? Mr. President, were you calling for a regime change?" Biden turned around and said no. Biden replied before entering his presidential limousine and motorcade that was taking him back to the White House after church services. But in the speech, he says, and I quote, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," end quote. That came from his mouth in Poland. So I don't know, Joe. Did you forget that you said that? What did you really mean? Do you even know that you're president? Do you even know where you're at? Did you know that you're in Poland, or did you think that you were in Martha's Vineyard? Anyway, next headline. Found this one very interesting as well. I did watch parts of the Trump rally on Saturday. Again, some of the stuff is the same as usual. He says a lot of the same stuff, but he's really ramping up the fact of what happened in November of 2020. So Trump hints at 2024 bid at Georgia rally, and he says, I quote, "I just may have to run again." Now, yes, I've got some phone calls and some messages. He said something supposedly during the speech that he's going to be back in a couple of weeks. A lot of things going on out there that I am paying attention to, but I'm not going to put any credit to it at this moment until I see more happening. But he does talk about running again in 2024. Former President Donald Trump floating the idea of running for president again in 2024 as he spoke to a large crowd at a rally in Georgia on Saturday night. Trump made suggestions toward the beginning of his speech, which was live streamed by Right Side Broadcasting. The truth is, now listen, I ran twice, I won twice, and I did much better the second time. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. We all know that. Um, he talked about what happened in the cycle in 2020, and I mean, I'm really dancing around some of these words and titles now. I really don't want to get booted off of here, but if I do, I'll just jump over on channel 2. I don't care. Trump then added, now we just may have to do it again, in his comments Saturday night. So what do you guys think about that? He promoted a lot of people. He promoted Kemp. He promoted Herschel Walker. I thought that was really neat. Just a lot of good things in that speech on Saturday night. Like I said, I kind of skimmed through it. I heard a few things. Is he coming back in 2 weeks? Is it going to be 2024? I don't know. I just find it very interesting that he can go to these rallies and he can get tens of thousands of people that show up at a rally, and the supposed commander in chief goes overseas and gets 12 soldiers to show up at his pizza party or whatever he had over there. So what's really going on? What's really going on? Nobody will show up for anything that Joe Biden does, but yet Trump still manages to pull in tens of thousands of supporters, of people who are awake, not woke, but are awake. They know what's going on. And I think we all know what's going on. So anyway, that's the headline hits for today. We'll be back later this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Podbean with Red Step Stacker. If you guys like Red, he's going to be on Podbean with me later this afternoon. And then later tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be right back here on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook with CamTube. So don't miss that later this evening. All right, folks, have a great afternoon, and we will catch you later today.